joining. Let's end this quickly. Tried. Who's up next? end this quickly. You have a job to do. Of course it's down to me.
I thought I was a goner.
Retreat! I see you. You tried. Let's end this quick.
Out of my way!
We are victorious.
Good work, everybody. I'm proud of you.
Double kill. A cry of terror rings out. Triple kill. Quadra kill.
You won't stop!
joining us.
Enemy spotted. I see the enemy.
You tried. This isn't good. You tried.
Double kill. You are the avatar of death.
Better find some cover.
I am magic itself. And peck.
Double kill.
Twitch like an ant. Whoa.
A cry of terror rings out.
Whoa. Eat. Whoa. Inevitable. I should stay on the side.
Double kill.
You dare doubt me?
That was rough.
And the flame.
Of course it's still me. Should have thought twice. Let's end this quickly. Enemy down.
I see the enemy. Enemy spotted. I see the enemy.
That was rough. Enemy down.
Am I the only one left?
We pierce all.
Let's try something new.
We ride.
This isn't good. I'm bringing you back. Let's end this quickly.
I am the flame.
Your valor will live forever.
Hang on! Check this one out! Let's make some music! Break!
You have vanquished the powerful revenge. Double kill.
Get off the stage!
because it's so egregious and wrong? Or is it sometimes unsayable because it's true? How many times has Alex Jones been right? Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Thanks for joining us on our voyage to truth and freedom. Now that he's back on X, we can look at Alex Jones, guest on our show, and how many times he's been right. We know the times when Alex Jones was wrong. We know the mistakes that Alex Jones has made. When I spoke to Alex Jones, the way I said that I look at him, and I believe this, is our culture doesn't permit for shamanic, mysterious figures that piece together peculiar pieces of information in ways that are unusual but would have once been understandable, working on multiple levels simultaneously. If Alex Jones was simply the man who had wounded the grieving parents of Sandy Hook, which of course he acknowledges was wrong and was a mistake, then there wouldn't be loads of footage of him perspicaciously announcing in advance a number of things that are extraordinary and include even 9/11. We all know where Alex Jones has been wrong. He himself has admitted it. Let's have a look at the times that Alex Jones was right. How could he have known these things? And what about the predictions that Alex Jones is making right now? What things do we have to be aware of?
You said they're going to have airliners fly into the World Trade Center and they're going to blame a guy called Osama bin Laden. No, leaving aside what actually happened, how could you have known that?
If a really nebbish kind of Harvard journalist had done that, you'd be like, oh my God, you're a genius. How did you know that? If it was like someone like this Woodward Bernstein type journalist, or more contemporary, modern, but respected, even legacy media generally, be like, how did you work that out? What were your sources? How did you do it? You know, that would be revered and prize winning. But because Alex Jones is like a preacher, because I see him as a kind of spiritual, mystical orator rather than a journalist as we previously understand it. And by the way, there's room for different ways of approaching information. This person will be lauded. It's extraordinary, isn't it?
Well, in the longer clips, because it's a multi-hour show from July 25th, 2001, I specifically walked through all the reasons, and I knew that they were hyping up that we were about to be hit by Osama bin Laden. I knew that the World Trade Center had been attacked the first time and that the Fed's been involved helping cook the bomb and allowing it to go forward. And I just saw a lot of the pre-programming that was happening in the media.
Pre-programming is a term that we're becoming increasingly familiar with, probably because of people like Alex Jones. Michael Schellenberger, for example, said that with the Hunter Biden laptop story, there was a lot of pre-programming or prepping or pre-framing. Oh, there's going to be this story, it's Russian disinformation. So when it comes through more respected, shall I say, or credible, it depends how you regard Alex Jones and how you regard legacy media or even independent journalists like Schellenberger. We approach it differently. So it's very interesting to see where Alex Jones sort of was culturally ahead of the curve, but also literally ahead of the curve, but also literally ahead of events in ways that seem difficult to understand.
Because they were on the news saying, you know, well, life's about to change in America. And I was reading what the Rand Corporation was saying and what the Pentagon was putting out. And I read the PNAC document from a year before, Rebuilding America's Defenses, that Dick Cheney had helped write. And it said we need a Pearl Harbor event on the American homeland to be able to bring in this police state and this control, and then expand the American empire worldwide. So hundreds of pieces of data went into that prediction. My most accurate prediction, going back over a decade, was when I read the Rockefeller Foundation Operation Lockstep, and they described using a virus to bring in world government, to bring in a world medical ID, that they would then build the social credit score off of, and that they would make people wear masks for fear.
I don't remember anything like that.
That they would shut down sporting events and things like that, and basically phase in this new tyranny. So I was also able to specifically make that prediction over and over and over again, because I was going off their own battle plans.
Are you the only person in media who actually reads these reports?
Hush here, joining me.
Warhaven here.
Let's end this quickly. some revenge?
Here I come!
Enemy down. Of course it's down to me. Who's up next? Who's up next? Should have thought twice. Give it another shot. This isn't good. You tried.
Enemy is halfway to victory.
You are the avatar of death. Double kill.
What did you
Enemy
think?
has made it halfway.
Triple kill. A cry of terror rings out.
Who's up next?
Out of my way!
Enemy down.
The trial commences.
Find some cover. I'm bringing you. Let's try something new. Should have thought twice. Should have thought twice.
You are the avatar of death.
You tried. Of course it's down to me.
A cry of terror rings out.
One last push to victory.
Give it another shoot.
Your valor will not be forgotten.
I don't think a lot of people do read them, but I do read them. I mean, I'm currently reading MIT reports from their top councils, reports from another working group called the Mad Scientist Group.
You are the avatar of
death. MIT. And if you go watch their hour-long, 2-hour-long, 3-hour-long meetings they have on YouTube with all the top, I mean, we're talking hundreds of top scientists, they admit that they're building a post-human world, that soon everyone's going to be mind-controlled, that they're going to put smart dust in our food that they can electromagnetically control, and they just lay it all out right there. And I've learned what these people said in the 50s they would do were done by the 70s. What they said their plan was in the 70s for the 90s, they got done.
When it comes to discrediting Alex Jones, do you imagine that it has more to do with saying stuff around Sandy Hook and making errors in other areas? Or do you think it's because there are data available that can tell us about the intentions of the powerful, which have demonstrably now been shown to be true, and that if enough of us feel like, well, hang on, have we got more in common with one another than these establishment interests that appear hell-bent on controlling us, but that we would become less malleable, more disobedient, more likely to resist? There may be certain things about Alex Jones that you don't like, the way that he talks or looks or whatever, but the fact is that when he's saying stuff that they talked about in the 50s happening, you know, and the pandemic stuff and the 9/11 stuff, and generally now, I think that Alex Jones was way ahead of the curve. Now there are all sorts of independent voices that are aware of, you know, conspiracies that are not conspiracy theories, but that are conspiracy facts, and plans that were sort of spoken about at the globalist level that have subsequently been enacted. What you have to ask yourself, I always think, when someone is vilified and subject to vendettas and media attacks, do you think that the problem is what they're telling you it is, or do you think that this person might actually be a threat to establishment interests? It doesn't take long to work out what's more likely.
And then when they had their Agenda 21 in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, the big UN summit, they described everything they would do up until the year 2000, and they got almost all of that done. And now they've got Agenda 2030, and we're going to ban your gas stoves, we're going to ban beef, we're going to ban single-family dwellings, We're going to ban private ownership of cars.
So just keep a watch out for rhetoric, language, and legislation around those ideas. It's pretty easy to track. Look at today's date, then watch out for people saying, we're going to ban single-family dwellings, we're going to ban beef. Look out, for example, if people are doing lab-grown meat. Look at to see if the agricultural industry is being massively stymied. You know, we have conversations with Vandana Shiva, who is a voice that is, I would say, equally powerful to Alex Jones, but operates in a very different sphere. She's an academic, she's an Indian woman. Her pedigree is different from Alex Jones, and when you start to cross-reference these people, it's clear that Vandana Shiva is saying similar things. Agriculture is being shut down globally to create artificial scarcity. If you can control food, you can control the entire population. Then you start there, hold on a minute, why is Bill Gates buying up all of this farmland? Why is Bill Gates involved in medicine? What was all that social credit score during the pandemic? Of course they have to create a climate where you regard that as hysterical and ridiculous and you discredit those voices. That's unacceptable to say that about those children. Of course it's unacceptable to say that about children. If you're making the amount of content that Alex Jones is making, you're going to say all sorts of mad stuff. I'm sure we've said things on our channel that ultimately don't look good. But the fact is there's an intention to create truth, to create a knowledge base, and to empower an audience in ways that makes people, I think, a little more disobedient and difficult.
We're going to do all this, and now you see them rolling it all out. So I'm not really making predictions in these high-level World Economic Forum and other large think tank groups. They are laying out the future, and they're high priests of the World Economic Forum, which is a consortium of all these groups. Yuval Noah Harari, you can read his quotes. The future's not human. The human era is over. The public is useless. I mean, this is a very anti-human system, so that's how I'm able to make predictions, because they've given us a roadmap. They tell us where they want to take us. And so when the public wakes up, we push back on some of it, but they always come back. And so I'm just following the trajectory of where they say they want to take us.
Alex Jones has a particular rhetorical style, more akin to a preacher than a journalist as we were taught to understand them. But when he talks about automation and AI and Yuval Noah Harari's prediction that the future will be technological, that's in a sense the march of capitalism that's been completely normalized, that there are sort of best-selling books and think tanks and forums where we're just told, oh, this is how it's going to go. And think about how the legacy media just normalizes the presence of robots in the New York City streets. It's going to be convenient. Amazon can deliver straight to your door. This is, in a sense, how the media normalizes information that comes from academia or think tanks or globalist groups, and it slowly just seeps into the culture. To me, it seems like the intentions are domination and profit and centralization of authority. And Alex Jones has a very invective, passionate style, and people like Yuval Noah Harari just sort of tell you in a sort of a rational way, this is good, this is going to be beneficial. Universal basic income, the public is useless now, you don't need the population. And I suppose, as Alex Jones says, you have to look at this information and see what is useful. And of course people err and make mistakes, but what is the reason that Alex Jones has become so controversial? What do you think it's actually about? Why is he being demonized? Is it because he said things that have hurt people's feelings, for which he's atoned, or is it because he said things that make people mistrustful of the establishment?
There were a lot of white papers, not just the PNAC document from 2000, a year before 9/11, where they describe we really need big terror attacks, we really need Pearl Harbor events to get Americans to give up their rights. I mean, take what just happened in Israel, totally tragic. My heart goes out to all that have been killed or lost loved ones or been injured. But there's no way that one of the best intelligence agencies in the world didn't know that was coming, the massive buildup, the 5,000 missiles, the paragliding attacks, all of that. And so there was clearly a stand down there. And now the West will take more of the people's rights. Israel will be able to crack down and take more of their people's rights, which is a big debate over there. Hamas is being funded by Hezbollah, which is Iran. We just had Biden a month ago give $6 billion to Iran. And now the Mullahs are bragging that they were behind the attack, Hezbollah funding Hamas. So really, those aren't even predictions. It's clear that Hezbollah and Hamas have tens of thousands of men and women as sleeper cells.
In a sense, all Alex Jones is saying is that there are ulterior, submerged narratives that are not properly described and explained within legacy media because it's against their interest to give you that type of perspective. He's really putting together available information and asking you what you think. Whether or not you think there was a stand down, I suppose that's the most outrageous claim that's made there, but is there a precedent for things like that? Have there been false flag events? What Alex Jones invites you to do, I suppose, is to question the authority majority of legacy media. And I think because of that, it's no coincidence actually, is it, that Alex Jones and Trump shared a pivotal moment before the ascendancy of Trump, because really what he represents, I think, is the rise of independent media. People say, oh, they're mad, they're hysterical, but that rise would have not been possible if legacy media had maintained its integrity. And if you want a sort of two-word example of the loss of the legacy media's integrity, Julian Assange. That's where they lost their integrity. And so you're going to have people like Alex Jones, who I think should be permitted in the public space because he's putting together ideas that are valuable and important. And also, there's a degree of snobbery. Do you think there is as well? Like, sort of like, who does he think he is? Listen to us, shut up. We experienced that, as a matter of fact. Oh, be quiet. You didn't go to university. Shut your mouth. We'll tell you what to think. There's a variety of factors that certainly, in my opinion, go beyond. We're just trying to protect you from Alex Jones. That's all we care about. He might upset you. I don't know. I've not seen too much protection from you guys.
And it's an easy equation to predict that there's a wide probability that Hezbollah and Hamas at some point are going to attack sports stadiums, they're going to attack colleges, they're going to attack synagogues, they're going to shoot up mass gatherings if they're given the order by Iran, if we go to war with Iran. And then when this happens, our government won't get in trouble for dissolving the border and letting these people come in. Just like on 9/11, our government clearly had prior knowledge. There was clearly a major stand down that went on. And the government got more power, more control, and now they're not pointing the Homeland Security apparatus.
Now we're beyond Alex Jones and we're into the threat of independent media. Once you have figures like Tucker and Alex Jones having conversations like that just can't be shut down, you need to get Barack Obama behind a podium in Stanford saying, misinformation is dangerous. We can't have people not trusting the mainstream media and trusting the state. We need to get rid of this. Because essentially, if that now, what he's able to do is say, this will happen. When that happens, there'll be millions of people that are like, hey, we were told this was going to happen. So it's a tragic event where on this unbelievable, these monsters, these animals, whatever version of reality they try to mobilize in order to generate regulation, legitimize war, facilitate profit. We all know how this works now. The independent media space offers not only an antidote to it, but potentially a prevention of it. We're already seeing figures like RFK, Vivek Ramaswamy, the obvious example of Trump, that are able to bypass previous gatekeepers. That's the real threat. It's not like, oh my God, before any more parents are upset, we gotta shut down all those people who are plainly against establishment interests. I don't trust them. We're told that Alex Jones is a pariah and a lunatic, an evangelist. He must not be trusted. But all he's really saying about a potential war with Iran is there's a possibility that it will lead to attacks on American homeland. And certainly the Iraq war, for example, did lead to terror in the Middle East, if not attacks on American homeland. So who's more hysterical and crazy? Is it Alex Jones or is it Barack Obama, Nikki Haley, all these people that are saying let's go to war with Iran, it's necessary to have war with Iran, without ever mentioning, oh, this could in fact escalate the possibility of domestic attacks. It certainly will probably mean that American service people will lose their lives. We've got to make a choice there. What they're focused on is shutting down alternative narratives and simplifying their own agenda and presenting it as something that's beneficial to you. Never outright saying, look, we've got these ties to the military-industrial complex, 50% of our defence budget goes there, massive amount of your taxes, they keep failing audits, we know that weapons intended for Ukraine ended up, but all of these things are ignored and voided. That's why no one trusts them, that's why they're willing to trust Alex Jones, that's why they're shutting Alex Jones down.
At the Russians, like they did in the Cold War, or the Islamists after 9/11, now they admit that their main focus is Christian conservatives and the bitter clingers and the people that live in rural America that quote, white people, I mean, it says that in the report, are the main terror threat. And so this whole apparatus of the war on terror, it has now been turned inwardly against the people, not just here, but also in Europe, where if someone criticizes transgenderism in the UK, they come to their house and arrest them. If a journalist does that, they come to their house and arrest them. If somebody says, I think these surveillance cameras should start getting cut down, they come to their house and they arrest them for their free speech. And so this is a global movement by the mega corporations, by the BlackRocks and the State Streets and the Vanguards that control 80+% of world wealth to control our behavior. And Larry Fink of BlackRock has said that to Demos repeatedly. We're going to use our control over all this finance and this global social credit score rolling out to control people's behavior. So that's really what this is. And then they use the threat of global warming, they use the threat of a virus, they use the threat of radical Islam to take our rights, but we really are the target.
You lunatics! What, you think BlackRock and Vanguard have an influence over politics? It's not like whenever the leader of China comes to San Francisco, we get Larry Fink and the heads of banks sort of line up and shake hands with him. It's not like when Zelensky visits the United States, the military-industrial complex, all line up and shake hands with him. It's not as if there are massive meetings around the world where powerful people come together and lay out the plans for the next couple of years. It's not like many of these predictions have literally and observably come true. Oh no, wait, that has actually literally happened. So all that's left for us to decide is, are they trying to shut down Alex Jones and discredit him because he's hurt some people's feelings and said stuff that was not true that he regrets? Or is it because he's saying a load of things that are true that they regret? The truth is that Alex Jones is ahead of the curve, recognising that politics was changing, the media was changing, that the divides between political classes and cultural classes was altering, and he spoke openly and authentically, and that's what these spaces, I think, demand. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the chat? Remember, we stream at these times. We'll be back at this time. Remember, become part of this movement. A powerful, independent media is precisely what the world needs to empower us all so that we can grow our individual sovereignty, our community sovereignty, and our collective sovereignty. In the meantime, please stay free.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.
Give it another shot. Who's up next? Enemy ahead. This isn't good. Let's try something new. Amber flame. This isn't good. Should have thought twice. Who's up next? Enemy down.
Double kill.
What did you
Shut
think?
down.
The immortals are with us this day.
Ally avenged. Double kill. Triple kill.
Another foe vanquished.
You have slain an immortal. Quadra kill. A cry of terror rings out. Terrifying.
Another foe vanquished.
In July of the year 2023, a group of Peruvian villagers deep in the Amazon rainforest experienced something horrifying and disturbing. They claimed they were attacked by extraterrestrial beings. The Iquito villagers claimed they fired multiple gunshots at the creatures to no effect. And here you can see the villagers firing their guns into the jungle in the dark of night. The village chief described how one of the creatures tried to abduct a 15-year-old girl. The girl had lacerations on her neck and managed to escape with the help of her brother. The description of these so-called extraterrestrials is very interesting. The villagers described these things as being very large, wearing like a body armor, elongated heads. They were floating on some sort of propulsion device that allowed them to hover in midair and then kind of travel silently through the jungle and disappear. Some of them were shot at point-blank range and did no damage to the creature. The chief of the village said these were not human beings, they were extraterrestrial. Those are the words of the village chief. Okay, so what did the Peruvian government do about it? Really nothing. A few police officers came to the village, concluded that these aliens were simply local miners wearing jetpacks that were trying to scare off the villagers from their land. So miners wearing jetpacks deep in the Amazon jungle? Okay. Yes, that's what the Peruvian press ran with as well, and so did the American press. And that was it. That was the official story. And then the story kind of died. But it didn't die for our next guest, Timothy Alberino. He's a filmmaker who's lived in the very same jungle region as these Peruvian villagers and had some very strange things happen to him while he was there. And we had Timothy on the show right after this event in the summer of 2023. And we kind of cataloged some of the fishiness around this story. Well, since that time, Timothy has traveled back to Peru, went to this village himself after multiple days on riverboat to go to this village, and what he uncovered is fascinating. And Timothy joins us now. Timothy, great to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back on.
So let's start with what these press reports had to say and what kind of set your alarm bells off. Because when I heard, oh, these are miners that are floating on jetpacks in the water to scare off these villagers, it sounded fishy to me. Why did you decide to head back to Peru to investigate yourself?
I went to Peru because it appeared to me that nobody had gone to conduct a competent investigation. As you mentioned, a couple of police officers went with a Navy escort. They had a Navy escort, Peruvian police officers from the city of Iquitos. And they had to go because there was an attempted abduction of this 15-year-old girl named Talia. So they went and they did a very quick investigation, and it was these police officers who concocted that ridiculous story about river miners with jetpacks, which, as you said last time you and I discussed this, neither of us were buying that fabrication, what was clearly a fabrication. So it was a combination of my curiosity regarding this story, and then also many of my followers were begging me to go, and so ultimately I decided to mount an expedition, and as you said, I went up the river, and it was a 2-day journey to the village of San Antonio de Pintuyacu.
So after this 2-day journey, you get there, you meet with the villagers, and they take you into the jungle to recount what unfolded that night. And so the initial reports were that these were some sort of large creatures wearing a body armor with elongated heads. I think the initial reports were that this looked a lot like the Green Goblin from the first Spider-Man movie, the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. And you spoke to multiple villagers, and what did they tell you about their experience?
Well, we heard stories from, as you said, many villagers actually, and they told us that their village was being assaulted for about a month-long period by very strange assailants. These assailants were dressed in black armored bodysuits from head to foot. They had elongated helmets with almond-shaped yellow or green tinted eye lenses. They had backpacks, but they don't appear to be jetpacks. Perhaps they're batteries or small reactors or something, because these guys would enter the village. Actually, they would be flying over the village when they would make their initial incursion. The villagers would see them flying over the village, and they would see these discs, these almost like little flying saucers in the sky above their village. And then they would see them go and land amongst the trees or behind the trees in the jungle, or in the clearings in the jungle. And then these assailants would walk or float into the village. And I say float because several of the men in the village told me that when they encountered these guys, these assailants, they weren't walking, they were floating. They have very strange footwear. They have these two discs on the bottom of their shoes. Each shoe has two discs, and apparently whatever sort of technological apparatus is on the bottom of their shoes, it enables them to float. And all of the encounters with these assailants are at nighttime. And the villagers, as I said, a couple of the guys, they shot at these assailants point blank range. In fact, one guy was very close. He was about 10 feet away. He discharged his 16 gauge shotgun at one of these assailants, and he knocked him back on his butt because he was floating. And he wanted to make it clear to me he was floating. I shot him, he fell back on his butt, the shotgun blast knocked him on his butt, but he just popped back up and resumed floating, and then sort of moved away.
Hush here.
And this is why the villagers were comparing these guys to the Green Goblin from Spider-Man. And also because they actually, as I said earlier, they would see these saucers in the sky. They would have a series of lights around the perimeter. They also had floodlights on them, and the assailants were actually surfing on these saucers. So this was their mode of transportation when they would come into the village. And these seem to be circular.
Mix it up.
This way. Over there.
Enemy spotted. Place to be.
Let's end this quickly. Who's up next?
We there yet?
Let's try something new. This isn't good. Let's try something new. Let's end this.
Halfway to victory.
Let's try something new.
Retreat!
Let's try something new. You tried.
A disappointing loss. I should have planned for this.
Let us celebrate this effort with a delicious carrot.
Double kill.
Circular hoverboard platforms, but they're silent,
Triple
and they
kill.
don't
You are the
appear to
avatar
be
of
using
death.
conventional propulsion, in other words, propellers or something like that. Seems to be some other kind of technology in play here. So, again, they would see these guys floating, and if they would put their flashlight on these saucers, they would see the silhouette of a guy like this on top. But they would usually land those platforms and then walk or float into the village. And the villagers had many encounters with these guys. There was one woman was telling me that during this period of time, every night, all the families would be huddled together, each one in their. Also, they all live, in different huts. But during this period of time, the families would all come together in one hut, one house, huddle together at nighttime. The men would have their shotguns, the women would grab machetes, and they would just be sitting there in terror all night long as a herd these guys moving through their village. And the lady even told me, one of these ladies even told me that they would pull on the boards of her house. They have these, you know, they have these rough-hewn boards for walls, and she said they would bang on the boards and pull on the boards as if they were trying to rip the walls off. And they would hear them moving around the houses, and then they would also see them when they went outside with their flashlights. They would see these guys, and they were very agile, as you said, very large, very, very agile. I was told, one lady told me she went outside with her flashlight. She was looking at one, and he jumped over her house. He leapt over her house, obviously through the agency of the technology that they have on their equipment. Maybe these guys have exoskeletons. They have some sort of unconventional technology or very, very advanced technology that they were deploying in that village.
Did they describe how tall they were? I said large, and that's the way they've been describing them. I mean, I'm 6'2". I don't know how tall you are. Were they comparing the size of these creatures or these whatever they were to you and your size?
Yes, I'm 6'1", and they all affirmed that they were my height or taller. So and I would ask them, so my height, taller, and they would always usually indicate about 7.5 feet tall. And that may be because of the technology that they have in their footwear, or again, maybe they have an exosuit, exoskeleton. I don't know, but definitely very tall, very large people. These assailants are very large, very bulky, and extremely agile. I had a couple of guys in the village tell me that they actually chased these assailants through the jungle. And they said the way they moved was, and these are their words, inhuman. They were inhumanly agile. The way that they were able to maneuver through the jungle, and also they also would come into the village. As I said, they'd see them flying above the village on these circular hoverboard platforms, but they would also come into the village on the platform. So it's sometimes they see them walking, sometimes they see them flying on the hoverboard, sometimes they see them floating just off of their boots, whatever technology they have on the bottom of their boots. In fact, they left footprints in the dirt, in the soil, and the footprints they're very large. And they're comprised of two circles. So rather than a typical boot-shaped footprint, it's a very large footprint with two circles, two discs marks in the dirt. And so these are very, very strange what's going on out there.
So I have so many questions. I want to kind of get to the debunking of the police report first. So the official story is that these are miners. These are village miners who have some sort of claim to local land, and they're trying to drive these villagers off. Number one, how long have these villagers been there? Is this like a new phenomenon that suddenly these miners are pissed that the villagers are there, or have they been there for hundreds of years? Number two, how loud are jetpacks? These particular propulsion devices are described as very quiet, and every jetpack I've ever heard, I've done segments on jetpacks, I've covered these, I've been out where, featured these on different television shows and so forth, and these things are incredibly loud. I mean, they're jetpacks. They sound like a jet. So can we talk about that piece of it, the sort of historical context here for these miners and the villagers?
The village is, these are the Iquitu people. This is a very old village. It's a very important village. It's exceedingly remote. It's one of the last villages before a vast wilderness between Peru and Ecuador and Colombia. And it's the Amazon jungle. The provincial government established a communications outpost in this village because it's one of the most important villages in Alto Nanay. That's the region, Alto Nanay. And the Iquitu people have been there for a very long time, and this is the first time that they have had an experience like this in hundreds of years. Right now, we know that the face peeler, the pelacara phenomenon, goes back at least to the 80s. That's what they're calling these guys, face peelers. But this village had not previously experienced the phenomenon. This was the first time. In regard to the miners, I talked to the whole village, by the way. They received me with great hospitality, with great joy. They even did like an Iquitos traditional dance for me when I arrived. Me and my partner Doug Thornton, who went with me, and they are offended, very offended at the notion that what they're experiencing has anything to do with river miners with jetpacks. That is preposterous to them. And now we now know, because of other details, that this is not, as I said before, this is not conventional technology. This is not just, if it's jetpack technology, then it's exceedingly advanced jetpack technology. But it's not jet, or it's at least not only jetpack technology, but I'm willing to say it doesn't have anything to do with jetpacks at all. As I said, the assailants are flying on circular hoverboards. That's how they're maneuvering through the sky, is on these circular hoverboards, that's for sure. And also, it's important to note that aside from the technology, the exoskeleton, the hoverboards that they have, they also are in possession of what can only be described as advanced aerospace vehicles.
Let's try something new.
Many of the villagers
pretty advanced for some remote village miners to have this kind of expensive advanced technology.
Is preposterous. In fact, we can rule out river miners. We can rule out. We can also rule out drug traffickers, narcos, because many of the villagers described, they even drew in the dirt for me, these advanced aerospace vehicles that have the capability to hover silently over the village. When I say advanced aerospace vehicles, I'm talking about like UFO type craft here. They hover silently over the village. They're about the size of a small, like a private jet or a large helicopter. They're acorn shaped, like an acorn on its side, not like a bell shape, an acorn on its side. And they sort of come to a point in the front and then they round off at the back of the craft. One individual drew the craft for me on an acrylic board. He was pulling his nets up at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's pitch black, and then all of a sudden he said it was like somebody turned the lights on. It was like the sun came up, he said. Everything was lit up around him. He was looking down in the water, and he saw this reflection in the water, so he looks up, and about 30 or 40 feet above his head, he sees this craft, this acorn-shaped craft hovering silently above him, and it's transparent. He said it had like a transparent mesh. The fuselage was made like out of a transparent mesh, something like that. And he can actually see two guys inside of it. One was sort of in the cockpit area, one was in the middle. It had these rounded nubs for wings, so it didn't have wings. It was completely silent, and these nubs, they open up and they deploy a series of rapidly blinking lights as if it's scanning. And he's not the only one in the village who described that very thing to me. There's numerous people in the village saw this same craft hovering above the village on numerous occasions, and in their case it wasn't transparent. In his it was transparent. So obviously, and by the way, I made the point to say that there's a government communications outpost in the village. That's important because the villagers have internet. There's a satellite uplink in the village, and they go in what they call the Tambo, which is the building that belongs to the provincial government that they built there, is the satellite. So the villagers can go to the Tambo, and they can connect to the internet on their cell phones, and they sit there and they watch movies at nighttime. These are not, by the way, these are civilized people, the Iquitos people. They're not like running around in grass skirts and blowguns, and they watch all the same movies we do. They know what helicopters are. They know what they see the military helicopters, by the way, patrolling the area every now and again. They're perfectly capable of distinguishing between a helicopter and a craft that seems to be unconventional. For example, this particular individual who drew the craft on the acrylic board, he told me, he said this craft was silent. There were no propellers. There was no propulsion system like on an airplane. He said it was just hovering silently until it began to move away, at which point he could hear like a low frequency hum as it moved away. So we're not just dealing with assailants surfing on these circular hoverboards or deploying this technology from their boots or wearing these exoskeleton suits. Now we have to also factor into this equation advanced aerospace technology. So goodbye river miners story. There's no way river miners are going to have advanced aerospace technology like that, and there's no way narcos are going to have it either. Now, the drug traffickers like in Mexico, they have military-grade hardware. There's no question about it. They have military-grade weapons and so forth, but they don't have battleships. They don't have fighter jets, and they're not going to have advanced aerospace vehicles. They're just not. So we're dealing with something a lot more sinister, like maybe deep state type level stuff going on.
So that brings me to my next series of questions. Why? Why would they be there? Did the villagers give you, and that's probably maybe the hardest question to answer of all, right? Did the villagers give you any indication as to why they've been harassed over the past few months? Regularly, almost every night they're experiencing this. This isn't one event and they're done, right? They've been coming and coming and coming.
And not just this village. Multiple villages in Alto Nanay have been attacked, and some of them have been hit with lasers. But by the same assailants wearing these black armor bodysuits, they've all seen the craft. A lot of them have seen the craft I just described, this advanced aerospace vehicle. So the initial reporting, first in the Peruvian press, and then the American press picked it up and ran with it. Even I forget the name of the one, The Nation or whatever it is. They were saying that these are river miners with jetpacks, and the purpose of these incursions is to drive the villagers out of this remote village so that they can operate in the region, so that they can mine in the river. Hogwash. We know that is not true. How do we know? Because the attacks that happened in these remote villages, these villages have, anywhere from 50 to 200 people. San Antonio de Pintuyacu has about 200 inhabitants. It's a larger village, 200 inhabitants. But they did not just happen in these remote villages. The incursions also happened in the city of Nauta, and also on the outskirts of Iquitos. Now you have to understand, Nauta, which is a 2-hour drive, about an hour and a half, 2-hour drive from Iquitos. It's the only place you can drive, by the way, from Iquitos. Iquitos is the main city in that department in the Amazon, in that state, let's call it, in the Amazon. You can only get to Iquitos by boat or airplane. There are no roads that go there. One of the most remote cities in the world. From Iquitos, the only place you can get to by road is Nauta. Nauta has a population of 35,000 inhabitants. Okay, it's got a military base, it's got a Navy base, Army base, and it's got a well-equipped police force. So now we're not dealing anymore with a remote village whose villagers are equipped with shotguns held together with rope like in San Antonio de Pintuyacu. Now we're dealing with a city, 35,000 inhabitants, with an Army and Navy base that can deploy helicopters, automatic weapons, and the same incursions happened in Nauta.
Were there any military responses to this? Were there any radar signatures, anything like that you've been able to uncover that military members have come forward and confirmed or that they were able to track?
No, I met with one of the most famous admirals in Peru, and a couple of Navy guys who are very well connected, and I talked to them. I wanted to get their thoughts on what's been unfolding in the Peruvian Amazon, and basically, they're very dismissive. Everyone is dismissive except for the people. You go to these villages and you talk to the people, and they're living in terror, or at least were living in terror. But the Navy is very dismissive. The provincial government has been very dismissive of all of this, which is bizarre because not only was there an attempted abduction of Talia, a 15-year-old girl in San Antonio de Pintuyacu, and attacks in other villages where people were hit with lasers that knocked them unconscious and gave them heart problems. There was a boy, I think he was about 12, 13 years old. I can't remember exactly his age. Maybe he was older. And I believe this occurred in a village. It's a different village up a different river. I believe the village is called Bakasan. And it's not far from Nauta. Previous to my visit to Nauta, this boy had been attacked, but they said this was a face peeler attack. Somebody had attacked this boy, had assaulted this boy, and he was left with extremely deep and graphic lacerations. on both sides of his face, under his jaw. And they said this was a face peeler attack. And this boy almost died. They rushed him. They were able to somehow rescue him. And they rushed him to the hospital in Nauta. Just a week or so before I got there. They rushed him to or perhaps a month before I got there. They rushed him to the hospital in Nauta. And thank God they were able to give the kid a transfusion and sew him up, and he survived, but he almost died. So this is not just seeing lights in the sky or something. These are hostile, aggressive encounters that the people are having with these assailants. And again, I'll reiterate, Nauta has 35,000 inhabitants. So we can comfortably remove off of the table the notion that these are that there's any sort of conventional explanation here. These are not river miners. These are not narcos. It's not the jetpack technology that you see on, like you were talking about, that you see.
In this battle, the front lines are ever shifting. Press forward and capture the enemy's territory and seize victory.
Hush here, joining up. This isn't good. This foothold is as good as ours. It's time to fight.
They've taken our foothold. Retreat and regroup.
Let's try something new.
We are on the defensive. Fall back to our footholds.
Am the flame. Let's end this quick. Of course it's down to me.
They've taken our foothold. Retreat and regroup.
Let's try something new.
Let's go together.
We are on the defensive. Fall back to our footholds.
You tried.
The trial commences.
The enemy is falling back. Press forward. We are on the defensive. Fall back to our footholds.
Let's try something new. Let's end this quickly.
Halfway to victory.
Bloody their noses. Let's try something new. Let's try something new.
The enemy has made it happen.
We've taken a
They've
beat.
taken our foothold. Retreat and regroup.
Enemy ahead.
Got trouble here.
We are on the defensive. Fall back to our footholds. The enemy has the advantage.
You tried.
Capturing a foothold.
The enemy is falling back. Press forward. We are on the defensive. Fall back to our footholds.
Who's up next? Let's try something
The
new.
enemy is falling back. Press forward.
Should have thought twice.
Beware the enemy relic.
We're under fire.
We have them on the defensive.
Dad, we run.
They've taken our foothold. Retreat and regroup. We are on the defensive. Fall back to our footholds.
Of course it's down to me.
They've taken our foothold. Retreat and regroup. We are on the defensive. Fall back to our footholds.
Who's up next?
The enemy has surpassed us. The enemy is falling back. Press forward.
are the avatar of death.
Better find some cover. Let's end this quickly.
They've taken our foothold. Retreat and regroup.
Who's up next? Should have thought twice.
Group up! We are on the defensive. Fall back to our footholds.
We must destroy the enemy rebels.
Let's end this quickly. This isn't good.
Your valor will not be forgotten.
Easy battle. Almost a waste of my talent. It's no surprise I am the only. I am Sophie! I am Sophie!
Shut down! You have slain an immortal! Shut down! Double kill!